Hello friends, today is the 22nd of April 2025. Yesterday I did a video on the passing of Pope Francis, and it was mainly not about him but about the papacy. I didn't particularly want to say anything negative about someone who had just died while his body is still warm, as it were, out of a sign of respect for the dead. It's a tradition, yes, that we all carry in our civilization, respect for the dead. Today, however, I want to share with you why I am so angry with this man and what he did to the Catholic Church. Now, angry, I know that I cannot just sit here on a YouTube channel and start being angry and start waving my arms around. I had to control that anger and try to be as calm as possible, which is difficult. It is very difficult for me because it's very painful. It's a question of betrayal, and when you are betrayed so openly, and he has betrayed the Catholic faith and the Catholic Church. I'll talk about that. I'll give you a few instances. At first, you don't want to believe it. That is the natural reaction on, something, someone, an institution, a government, whatever it might be, where you put your trust. And you realize that they were acting against you all the time. And then your trust turns to disappointment, and then a sense of betrayal, and then perhaps even a response with anger. And that is how I feel, although I will try to control it. Especially now that I see so many singing his praises. Certainly everyone who is non-Catholic or anti-Catholic loves him. Oh, they are there, practically in black, with a black tie, and all these professional wailers there. What a great man he was. And it is precisely in the Catholic Church where we feel the total betrayal to the faith. Those of us who do, let's say 50-50. Some of us who have seen how he has excommunicated right, left and center good priests and good bishops only because they wanted to continue with the tradition of the faith. And nevertheless we saw him receiving the globalists. We saw him receiving Bill Gates and the Clintons and everybody else, and Klaus Schwab, and they practically lived there. And behind the scenes, or perhaps not so much behind the scenes, he was excommunicating good traditional priests and bishops everywhere, thousands of them. It is in the Catholic Church that we felt what he has done. If you are outside it, you're not aware of it. All you see is his love for the poor. Yes, the poor. That old chestnut, the poor. It's a good decoy, the poor. Those of us who come, you may not, looking at me here like that, you may not be aware of it, but I come from the poorest of the poor, and I mean, no water, no electricity poor. I mean, orphanage poor. Okay. Those of us who come from the poor immediately notice what is fake. It's something that politicians and middle class and upper class people use. Oh, the poor, those lovely darlings, they are suffering so much. And we get the whiff. It's actually not a whiff, it's a stench that we're being used as a decoy. This man, Jorge Mario Bergoglio, is a man who wanted to break many seals and trespass many red lines in the church. Many of them he has not managed to break, though he tried. Had he been a younger man, he would have achieved it, the complete destruction of the Catholic Church. He would have achieved it. The creation, which is what he was aiming at, of a new universalist religion, where you could worship, whether it was in the cigarettes in or with the Dalai Lama or whatever it was, everything was the same. That is where he was going. In other words, the destruction of Christianity, a universalist, globalist religion. Not the Catholic, not the Christian faith, but a sort of a drowsy, summer-like, comfortable religion for everyone in the world. That would be the future religion of the world that is coming, or some say was coming, but it has been stopped. I think it's probably coming, although in the machine there are a few teeth broken there, but time of confusion. First point. As I said, the people who I know are non-Catholic or expressly and openly anti-Catholic loved him. They're all practically crying their eyes out. So sorrowful they are. And let's start with a few things, a few points that I want to make. Some people say that actually he didn't do anything that bad. I mean, he never actually went against any dogma. He never actually spoke ex cathedra to change doctrine officially. No, but that had to be step by step, you see. And that is not the way these people, this cabal to whom he belonged, That's not the way they operate. Or they haven't been operating that way, not openly. In politics, we see that they have become much more open about it. You can actually see them there, but that is not the traditional way they do it. In an interview, he said that he actually, the way he did it was by giving interviews, by writing footnotes on writings that he or whoever did his writings did. In an interview, he said that he actually did not know how to explain the meaning of the death of Jesus Christ on the cross. He just didn't know how to explain that. This is what he said. I can't think of anything actually more serious than not knowing how to explain what the meaning of the death of Jesus Christ on the cross is. The core, the epicenter of Christianity, the passion and the resurrection of Jesus Christ. He doesn't know how to explain that. Without that, Christianity would have no meaning. But this gentleman had no explanation, could give no explanation. The question had been what it meant. What did it mean? And he said that he could not give an answer to that. I think this summarizes well that this so-called Pope, who he was, certainly a Pope atypical, who in many occasions he might not have gone straight against dogma, but against many central issues held sacred by the Catholic Church. And we have seen many people in the church confused. What is going on? He certainly brought no peace. I hope he has as much peace as he gave to the Catholic Church. Not only did he say that he couldn't explain it, but in one homily in Africa, he took out the cross and said that the cross was the symbol of the failure of Christ. Well, this is more than shocking, this is blasphemy. He took out a cross and said that the cross was a symbol of failure. Not of redemption, no, failure. This is what he said. What to me is disturbing is the actual person himself. Are you hearing me properly? Speaking lowly because I'm trying to control my anger. Okay. The man himself. A Jesuit. You know what happened to the Jesuits from being the greatest defenders of the Catholic faith, taking the faith everywhere. What they became. They are actually the ones through which all these modernist ideas are introduced, they are at the moment, and I'm not saying all of them, not all of them, but it is a fact, is it not, that the Jesuits are now Freemasons. When I say Freemasons, especially those of you in America may not understand fully what it means here in Southern Europe, because you have not suffered directly their politics of deceit. Here in Europe, they are the ones who were involved in the destruction of Christianity. A secret society. I would describe it as a secret society made up of, and it's not that they are the only ones now, it's not as if they were the ones at the very top, they're certainly there. Intermediaries, perhaps. I would describe them as people who are untrue. What do I mean untrue? I would say a mixture of fake Jews and fake Christians. All of them pretending to be so, but not really, working against it. So, this man, Bergoglio, collaborator with the military dictatorship, the military junta in Argentina. Of course, now, and after he was elected Pope, you know what the reaction is going to be. Oh, no, he never did that. No, these are people. No. Cooperated actually with cruelty to the extreme. He denounced two of his priestly brothers. Now, of course, the narrative, the official narrative is that it's not so, and so on. But in Argentina, they know, and they used to talk openly about it. These two Jesuit brothers, Orlando Llorio and Francisco Yalix, who he denounced to the military junta, were denounced by him. But now the official thing is that no, he didn't do that himself. And so simply that perhaps he didn't give them enough protection when they were being targeted by the military for their social work in the slums of Buenos Aires during the dirty war in Argentina. We're talking about the 1976 to 83. At the very best, even if you want to put the very best face on it, he washed his hands of priests in the slums being taken up and tortured, and I don't think they were killed. He arrives, Bergoglio, at a specific moment in time by surprise, it seems, almost everywhere. I will do another video on his, there are question marks about his ordination, his becoming a bishop and an archbishop and all that, which also there are many details there that have been rewritten. Seems that his ordination was a little bit different too, not by the episcopate, all kinds of weird things there. But that needs more investigation, because everything has been cleansed, as it were. Yeah. But he always seems to arrive at a specific moment in time. He told us in an interview, which many months ago, perhaps over a year ago, I translated for you. There was an Argentinian television company interviewing him. And it was all kind of a little bit new to me, so I wanted to share with you what he was actually saying. So I listened very, very carefully to both interviews and actually translated for you every single word that he said during that interview. And something was off there. I listened very carefully. He was surprised. It was a surprise that he was being taken into account in the vote for the papacy. And he says at one moment that he, in the first round, he didn't get enough votes. So he just went and went to sleep, took a siesta. I don't know whether, I mean, think of it in terms of, I don't know, the political machines. I mean, you go to sleep in the middle of a vote. If you're certain that you're going to lose and there is nothing you can do, oh, goodbye, you know. Or if you're certain that you're going to win, so certain that you can actually sleep. What I am saying is that he was put there. He got very, very quickly to the top, as you do when you belong to the right societies, and then becomes this outlandish kind of mess, this monstrosity, this lackey, this puppet. Could be a puppet, or could be a leader of these, let's call it, to give it a general, very general name, the Agenda 2030. You know, I'm referring to the globalist thing. Okay. This to me is very striking, really, how the Pope in the Vatican, the Pope of the Catholic Church, can be so hand in hand with Davos, with that thing. How under his leadership, under his betrayal, lays aside, shelves even the symbols and the votes, even the symbols of Christianity, and devotes himself to talking about climate change and the virus thing and the need to be injected, and migrants, immigrants, and this was his thing, and homosexuals and transsexuals. These last, of course, under the mask of misguided charity, which is something, just as the poor, something that is always used. In the time of change, when Europe's Christianity civilization is being attacked from all corners. He devotes himself to climate change, to the injection, to immigration, homosexuality, and transsexuality, defending all of those. This is strange. Wanting to integrate something into Catholic doctrine that had never been there. And many of those issues and those themes that he took up actually repudiated by the Church, by the New Testament and the Old. So this was very different. This was something new. In other words, what I am saying is that he attempted to capsize, to overturn the rudder, as it were, to turn around the Church. And that is why he gains the applause of all those enemies of the Church, those declared enemies of Christ, who applaud him. And boy, did they visit him at the Vatican, and they helped him. He was always surrounded by these globalist people from Davos. But I have to bring up once again Cardinal Zen of China. I have referred to him some other time, but I have to bring him up because this was a man who was prosecuted and jailed in China, in jail for 30 years for his Catholic faith. And he was let out. He came to the Vatican. I don't know, obviously, what he wanted to talk about with the Pope. Perhaps he had some things to say. And he waited for the whole of one day to be received by the Pope. This was a man in his late 80s who had been imprisoned for more than 30 years. And this old man waited there to be received by the Pope for one whole day, and he wasn't received. And then this old man went there a second day and waited a second day to be received by Bergoglio, and he wasn't received. And then this old cardinal went again a third day and waited there the whole day to be received, and he wasn't received. And on the fourth day he went back to China. Was this Pope so busy? He was receiving Bill Gates, he was receiving the transsexuals, he was receiving Klaus Schwab, he was receiving everybody else. What does this tell you? But extreme cruelty, extreme contempt. Do not tell me, just by this little simple example, that that man was Catholic and representing the Catholic Church, or representing Peter or representing Christ on earth. That is not possible. This man was the personification of a total betrayal of the spirit of the Christian church as I see it. We can see, and we have been seeing in the Catholic Church for a long time now, since the 60s, a grave danger. What was happening to the church? They changed everything. They changed the liturgy. You know all that. Everything was turned upside down. Grave danger, grave danger. What is happening? Well, we have had that grave danger in front of our very eyes now for 12 years. And we have endured as best we could. I had for a long time just stopped reading about him and watching videos about the latest thing he had done because it is too painful. We have endured sometimes more stoically and patiently than others. And those of us who could complain or say something from this platform or another platform, we tried. Resisting this whole woke thing. But what we have witnessed of late is unspeakable. Remember Notre Dame Cathedral. Yes, all those churches, first of all, burned in France, burned in Canada. Churches burned everywhere. Did he say ever anything about it? No. And then Notre Dame Cathedral, with all the Freemasonry symbolism there. Do you remember the bishops dressed as clowns? Remember that? The priestly vestments. Do you not think that throughout 1,000 years, France or Notre Dame would not have the appropriate priestly vestments? And if they had all been burnt, which I doubt, if they had all been burnt in the whole of France, you wouldn't find the appropriate priestly vestments. And they were dressed by a brand something or other in clown-like tunics, designed, I'm sure, by the same people or close to the same people who designed the Olympic Games thing. So anyway, he's gone. Bye-bye. The see is vacant. It's been vacant. With the hope that all of these man's machinations that he had been working on and plotting, you could say, with all the churches of the periphery. Let's see. I said at the beginning that had he been a younger man, he would have achieved this universalist, globalist church. That means the destruction of Christianity. But obviously he was of an advanced age, and he was becoming ill, and all of a sudden he started creating, nominating, appointing cardinals all over the place. All over the place, cardinals, more cardinals, more cardinals. Those are the ones who vote for who is going to be the next pope. The conclave. 80% of those cardinals that will be voting for the pope are appointed, have been appointed by him. From all kinds of different places that no one has ever heard of, that shouldn't go against them, but from an island somewhere, from a different place somewhere. Who are these people? Where they come from? Well, perhaps they should tell us. Perhaps in their own communities they are well respected. I don't know who they are. But there is something that they all have in common, that they all seem to agree with him on turning the Catholic Church into a globalist NGO. Let me give you just an example. They are from all kinds of exotic places, okay? 4 of them are from India. India. 4 cardinals from India will be voting. One is the Archbishop of Goa, Cardinal Ferrar. I looked at his a little bit of his biography. He is committed to family ministry, interfaith dialogue, social justice, to support migrants and protect the environment. There's nothing here about Jesus Christ message, nothing. It's the Universalist Church. Nothing to do with Christianity. If you're going to worship anything, you're going to worship Gaia, nature, the creature, not the creator. Another from India too. This is just an example, okay? I just got the 4 from India. Basilius Clemis, who leads the Cairo Melangera Catholic Church, and he wants to, I couldn't get very much on him, but he wants to keep in the traditions of the Cairo Melangera community. Have to investigate more there, but anyway, it seems one of those churches who are self-governing but in full communion with Rome, I believe. All right. Another one is Anthony Pula. His main thing is equality. We are getting into diversity and equality and diversity and equity and inclusion. Yeah, equality within the church. Extrapolate that in many ways. He hopes for progress for communities that have long faced caste-based discrimination. Nothing wrong with caring for the poor. But that is what the USAID was also claiming. I'm not suggesting that the two here are the same. But this thing about the poor, I'm getting a little bit impatient with it. Another one is George Jacob Couvacard. He heads now the Vatican's interreligious dialogue, building understanding among different religions, seen as part of a new generation of leaders offering a fresh and global perspective. In other words, this may be holy men, they don't sound like it. These are people who have never been in great positions of power. You know what happens when you bring one from the lower echelons and you put him up. They're easily manipulated. You only have to look at politics to understand that. As people who people have never seen anywhere. We don't know who they are. This is going to be brutal. And then, of course, of all the popeable ones, the Italians there, we know that the Vatican is just a bunch of Freemasons, mafia there. The continuators of the disaster. I sustain that he has been a nefarious figure from the beginning. That he was necessary, he was put there to complete the destruction and demolition of the Catholic Church from within. And someone will say, what do you mean the church? The church. Will all of us are the church? Yes, all of us are the church, like all of us are the IRS, all of us contribute with our taxes. No, what I mean the church I'm talking about, not the church at large, but the hierarchy, which is in a maximum state of putrefaction. Within the church, the hierarchy, there is a very, very clear symptoms of apostasy. You all know that, you Catholics. Cardinals and bishops, and they all have become just a bunch of sellout functionaries, bureaucrats, who are anything but Christian. That is a mask. And this Francesco, collaborating with all that rubbish of the globalist agenda. One more minion, or perhaps it was some part of the hierarchy, perhaps the high priest of the universal church, who knows? But certainly part of that cabal. Instead of being a trench against it. Francesco was a necessary ally. He was a collaborator, a couple of all these globalist filth. And that is why, while he was getting all these cardinals from everywhere, 135 in, 2 months? He was excommunicating priests and bishops within the Catholic Church within 2 days, if they dared say anything in defense of religion, in tradition. You remember there are good 1 or 2, 3, 4 perhaps good bishops and cardinals. You remember Bishop Strickland? He's still there, yes, from the Diocese of Tyler, yeah. What did he do wrong? He was perfectly all right until you remember the Laker thing when the those how they call the how they call these men who dress up as women, yeah. The name escapes me now. Drag queens, yeah. You remember that they dressed up as nuns and paraded there in the in the place where they play, whatever it is that they play. And they were all dressed as nuns, and they were carrying a crucifix, and they were performing sort of pretend sexual acts with a crucifix. You remember that? Did the Pope say anything? No, of course not. No one said anything. There was only one bishop, one humble bishop from Tyler, Texas. Catholics had gathered in order to protest. Well, they couldn't have protested, otherwise they would have been taken away. But I think they decided to stay outside and pray all together. And this bishop went there and prayed with them, led the prayers. That is all he did. Pray. Well, practically the next day, was it 2 days, was it a week, but practically the next day he had inspectors from the Vatican to check his books and his budgets and his this and his that, and they didn't find anything, but it doesn't matter because he was deposed. What do you make of that? And another priest, I mean, there are thousands of them excommunicated by this Pope, right, left, and center. Anybody who wants to have anything to do with the traditional teachings of the Catholic Church, he excommunicates. The one, I think, is Father Pavoni, yeah? Who was there pro-life or something like that. Nah, he just took them all out. What, I ask you, do you make of this? So friendly with Bill Gates and his like, and defrocking and excommunicating good priests and good bishops, and bringing in cardinals in 2 months, 136 of them, who will vote for his successor, who talk about climate change. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is satanic. I see on YouTube many politicians in my country of origin who everybody knows they're Freemasons. Because as I don't know that I completed my thought about the damage that perhaps in America you find it difficult to understand, because you just see them as people who have a reading club or something. No, in Southern Europe they have been involved in attacking the Catholic Church. That's the main thing, the Catholic Church. And the Eucharist and all that. The fight is against Jesus Christ at the end. And I see in my country of origin, many politicians, I'm watching videos about people, commentators laughing at some politicians whom they know are Freemasons. I mean, we have had 2 prime ministers in the last 30 years who are Freemasons, have brought all these, never mind about that, all these problems to Spain now. Brought back the civil war, as it were. But there they are, practically crying in tears with black ties and praying his praises. And I don't know, it's satanic. So, what I am saying, my friends, is that he has not only broken with tradition. That is clear. Even if you don't agree with me, you must admit that he has broken with tradition completely. Yeah. But not only did he do that, I think he went further than that. I think he stomped on it, trampled over it. As they do, by the way, it's a ceremony when you get on the 33 grade. One of the rituals and ceremonies is to step on top of a crucifix. First with the left foot, then with the right foot. Perhaps he was the one that he carried war, yeah? In those interviews I told you about, they asked him why he was wearing that particular cross and not the one that popes normally wear. And he said, well, this is the one I got when I was ordained a bishop. There are question marks about that too. Anyway. What I'm saying is that the Vatican has been turned into the synagogue of Satan, for sure. The Jesuits have always spoken of a white pope and a black pope. Black in its figurative way, not a person of black skin, but black, dark. What I am saying, my friends, it is not that he might have been a Freemason. He was a Freemason. And this is generally acknowledged in Argentina, who know him well. Not only his collaboration with the junta, even though afterwards he said, oh, no, okay. There are sufficient testimonies alive today, people who directly suffered his betrayals, his reports to the military, his rapprochement with the military. Why did he never go to Argentina? He never went to Argentina. Of course, as a pope, you don't have to necessarily go to Argentina, but don't you think that it would have been natural? He visited many other countries. No, never went there. Never went to Spain either. Again, he doesn't have a pope, doesn't have to go to Spain, but I find it strange. Given the cultural ties and so on, he hated Spain. His declarations about Spain are horrific. More so, in the, I'm not sure whether it was the 5th century. What is the word? 500 years of Saint Teresa of Avila's birth. That was 500 years ago that they celebrated in 2015, I think. Well, there was another 4th century of her canonization, and that was later on in 2023. I'm not sure in each one of them it happened, but he was invited to attend. Now, he was too busy, never could. So, young people gathered together and took as a relic with them. They went to Rome to visit the Pope with a relic from Saint Teresa of Avila. And the relic was a walking stick that she used to carry with her to show it to him. And, just... There are videos about his reaction when the young people say, Holy Father, this is the walking stick, the cane that Saint Teresa... His response was, the old girl? No, he says, the old woman used to walk with that? Let me repeat that. His reaction was, The old woman walked with that. That was it. The old woman walked with that. He says that in Spanish in the video. Okay, now to be fair, I have to tell you that don't concentrate on the word old, because old in Argentina might also be a term of endearment. In other words, as in English we say, my old man. Okay, so more than the old woman, it would sound more like the old girl as a kind of endearment thing. So don't concentrate on the thing old. What I want you to concentrate on is that those were his words. Then they gave it to him, he kissed it very quickly, and off he went. He never thanked them. He never held it. He didn't even thank the young people. Well, thank you very much. I truly appreciate it. I wanted to come, but I'm sorry that I couldn't. And nothing. The old girl walked with that, and he moved on. Rome is not that far from Avila, and Saint Teresa is a doctor of the Church. And the 500 years, 400 years of her canonization in 2023, he couldn't find a day to visit Avila. Sorry, this is just, it may not be important to you, but it does touch a nerve. The old girl walked like that, walked with that, and off he went. Never even thanked them. Okay. Now, he was made a cardinal by John Paul II. That was in 2001. He had been appointed, made an archbishop in 1998. All very quick. I checked what that John Paul II looked like in 1998. He was already very, very old and very sick. By 2001, he was already, you remember him in the armchair, and he could hardly talk, and he died in 2005, right? He was already in a very, very ill state. And that is when he appointed him archbishop, cardinal and archbishop. Who nominated him? Who nominated Bergoglio to those offices, while John Paul II, I'm sure it wasn't the first thing in his agenda when he was so ill? I keep coming back to all his ordinations and so on, because there are very, very few photos, very few letters, articles, nothing there on his episcopal ordination. I'll come back to that. Okay. Certainly very different, wasn't he? He didn't want to live in the apostolic rooms where all the popes have lived. And he doesn't want to be buried in the Vatican. He certainly wants to be singular, let us say that, in everything. The cross is different, yes. Many other things. The shoes, oh no, I can't, I need orthopedic shoes. Okay, something else, oh no, I can't. I'm helping the poor. He certainly didn't want to be like all the other popes. Unchristian because he wasn't. An Italian priest that said during a mass, in the homily, praying for Benedict XVI, said that he was a usurper. He was a Freemason and a collaborator with the globalist elite cabal. Of course, he was excommunicated within 2 days. Now, you may say, well, he shouldn't have done that. Well, even the Inquisition had a trial. Even the Inquisition would call you to tell us what you said. They would have the documents. You would have a defense attorney, and you would have a prosecuting attorney, and everything is written down of what happened during that interrogation. Out. Anyone who didn't go along with his globalist agenda, excommunicated. What do you make of that? Oh, so charitable with the poor. Not with his own. Well, not his own, really. The great problem with the conclave is the struggle now between the Italians and the new ones, the young, no experience, the climate change and all those. And he wanted to be seen as so ecumenical, and nevertheless is the one that managed to, because of his stance on many things, managed to lead the church to a rupture between the Orthodox and the Catholic Church. So much for ecumenism. Not ecumenism with the other long of the Christian Church. The Orthodox and the Catholic. Orthodox in the East, Catholic in the West. Not with them. With all these other things. All right. What do I think? I think he was a traitor. A traitor to Christ. A traitor to Christ on the cross. I think he was an enemy of Christ. I know that some of you will see it in a different way, because it is painful, and you want to find the reason. But I was done a long time ago finding reasons to exculpate him. I was done a long time ago when I heard his interviews, lying. Why did you choose the name Francis? Oh, because when it came apparent that I had the most votes, I got up and some cardinal behind me said, "Don't forget the poor." And so I remembered St. Francis. That's a lie. years before he had taken part in a special mass in the basements of the Vatican, and when he came out, he signed Francesco already. I was done a long time ago when I saw his interviews with the obvious lying. I was done when I saw how he treated Cardinal Zen from China. I was done when he was receiving the Clintons, the Gates, the this and the that. No. Davos crowd, no. I was done when he hit that Asian woman. I told you about it before. Yeah, he was doing the crowds, and there's all these people here, and this woman, it was obviously from Asia, said Holy Father and wanted to touch his hand, and he went and hit her. It's there in the videos. What do you make of a pope hitting a woman who says, Holy Father? I was done a long time ago. The betrayal to Christ and his church is translucent, self-evident, absolutely frightening. And this conciliation with all those who have been forever the enemies of the church. Oh, everything is fine. Everybody, todos, everybody. That was a mask. And I do everything else behind the church's back. And who doesn't go along with me 100% with this thing, whatever it is excommunicated. That was a habitual, continuous practice with him. We know that in the traditional Catholic Church. Prohibiting, he went against priests who would say the Mass as the Mass was said for 2,000 years until the Masons changed it into this thing that they have now. But until the 60s, for 2,000 years, which was never officially prohibited because you cannot prohibit it. The Mass that all the saints attended and celebrated. Anyone who dares say that Mass excommunicated practically straight away. He hated it. Hated it. There is hatred there. Where does that hatred come from? It makes you almost spew the mouth. Can you be Catholic and just mistaken? No. It goes beyond that. But some will continue to see, oh no, he was such an understanding man, the poor. If I hear someone, please, politicians talking about the poor, I'm going to scream. That decoy the poor. Oh, he was so understanding, this and that. And he likes to dialogue with other people. But it was totally the opposite inside the Catholic Church. Do you understand that? When you look at the reality of the thing and see others trying to interpret, well, I gave up a long time ago. Oh, but we have to understand that, you see, we have to understand what you have with moral. What is it that you have to understand further than the evidence? Dig in your own grave, Catholics who follow him. He has been a collaborator, a necessary tool for the complete and total destruction of the church from the inside. A prop for those cabal, whatever. That was his mission and his legacy as Pope. Is there going to be now a period of common sense and back to normality? Well, you know how they do this. They don't go sort of all the way completely. He didn't quite finish his mission. He left it ready there, okay? There could be a step back. There always is when you go too far. We know this from politics. You can see it. Then you retreat a little bit, okay? You took people so far and people, oh, what is happening? And then you retreat, and so people feel, oh, okay, a sense of relief. But you have advanced already 2 steps forward, you see. You go little by little like that. So, no, he did not manage to change officially ex cathedra any dogma. It was more with gestures, with footnotes, with interviews on planes, informal chats that created the atmosphere, the ambience. It was nefarious. I suggest that everything was planned from the first, since he was made an archbishop for sure, and perhaps even a bishop. They had it very clear where they were supposed to go and where they were supposed to take the church and where he wanted to take the church, and he almost did it. And the Catholic Church has a huge problem now in her hands, because practically all of her representatives in the hierarchy have been infected with the Masonic disease. So she needs an injection of serum for a rebirth. What else do I want to say? Oh yes, I was surprised, you see, because I do expect, as I said twice already, non-Catholics and anti-Catholics love him. And within the Catholic community, those that are aware of what has been happening and what he has been doing are on one side, and Catholics who have been not been paying attention are on the other. They are the ones like, no, safe and effective, everything is fine. They haven't listened, they haven't looked. And they might be for him because he's the Pope, right? So how can you be against the Pope? My goodness, okay? And I was listening to one interview with, here in England, Anne Widdecombe, okay? And I just started listening to it and I said, okay, bye. I wasn't surprised she was there, the Pope, okay, fine. I was surprised at George Galloway, though, who hasn't seen what has been going on. I'm surprised at him because I I do admire him. He's very savvy in politics. He has a great deal of experience in politics. Very articulate man, as you all know, George Galloway. And nevertheless, he hasn't seen it. He has opposed a man. He hasn't seen it. He hasn't been paying attention. Probably because also with Gaza, Bergoglio said a couple of times, oh, you know, the people in Gaza, poor people, you know, managed to say a few things every now and then. Yeah. In a place where, you know, Dresden is happening practically every day, perhaps that is not sufficient. No reaction there. There was no reaction from him. I told you about this before, but it has just stuck on my mind when a priest in Switzerland actually in the Eucharist took away the cross and put a pig's heart in a condom there in church. He was later prosecuted for other things. From Bergoglio, nothing, no. So what I'm saying is that even if he managed to say a few things about, oh, those poor people in Gaza, you know, the poor, the church did not do what it had to do. There was no reaction to what is happening today in the world. No reaction. Went along with it. It didn't even act it as a break. Not that perhaps it could have changed policies, but at least as a break. Nah, not even that. Why not? Because solely of this Pope? No. This has been coming on for a very long time. A very long time. People who have been fighting Christ on the cross, this has been going on for a long time. But if you want to just go to modern times, Pius XI actually, perhaps that is when the infiltration started for sure. He wrote an encyclical that I don't think he managed to publish, about the infiltration of Freemasonry into the Catholic Church. Of course, he was assassinated at the beginning of World War I. You didn't know that? It was already inside the church, this thing. And it has grown. There was a short period there during Pius XII, just, you know, during the war, just after the war. I remember those times. I remember Pius XII, yeah. That somehow he managed to create a sort of reconstruct something there, create a balance, not to allow them to move further. But of course then came Vatican II, and that has been, the church has been rolling down ever since, down the hill. And just a few more things, because otherwise this is going, oh goodness, okay. It's been going on for okay, just remember the virus, yes. Closed all churches, eliminated worship, and dictated that to everybody else. and then said that everyone had to be injected because that was an act of love. An act of love. And then proceeded to fire those young Swiss guards with the family who didn't want to be injected. That was an act of love. Out the next day. A figure totally collaborating with all this. This was his role. And he played it to perfection, to be part of that machine. And this has to be acknowledged. How, given the blindness and the passivity of most of the faithful, how can they fight back? He's the Pope, the greater authority, the Pope. He abused it, just like politicians abused your trust. He abused the faith and obedience to the Pope of the faithful. An act of love, he said. It has to be one of the more miserable, more contemptible phrases, more servile phrases, sentences in the last 5 years. There are many others. He was an agent. His politics were clear. Now the church full of bureaucrats, functionaries. All they seem to do is to want to get paid at the end of the month. And there you are. You have the CEOs, you have the vice presidents of the corporation, the rest, middle management. And if you object to that, you are excommunicated. And who dares? Not the cowards. Okay. Let me say just one last thing. At the moment, the Catholic Church is, let us not say the Catholic Church, the Vatican is one more Masonic lodge. One more. All right? Sometime it will have to be exercised, actually. That is what it is. Just one more Masonic lodge. He said, of course, lately when people accuse that there are so many Freemasonry, anti-Christian, anti-Catholic in the Vatican, he said, "Oh no." Despite the fact that he was a thorough Freemason himself, recognized, declared. The only thing is that obviously they play at the politics of deceit. And that is how they do it. Form part of they operate in the dark, let's put it that way. And those who want to see a rebirth of active Christianity, of our religion, of our civilization flourishing, I don't know how you're going to drain that swamp of crocodiles inside it. Because the Vatican has a relationship with those dark societies. Oh yes, and not only the injection. Oh my goodness, when he was there with Rothschild himself, generating an idea of neo-capitalism, yeah, and when he went to Davos, oh yes, made you run away. This is the reality, and this is unquestionable. There are no 1,000 ways to look at it. If you don't want to see it, you don't want to see it. But you are deceiving yourself. It is evident. Which was his role and what was his service? And whom did he serve? And in what manner did he do it? Oh yes, and of course the Universal Church, when he went to that in Iraq, that cigarette in and all that, that is part of the global church. No differences at all. One very last thing. When he came out of hospital, he had been very ill, yeah? When he came out of hospital, I noticed something that was very different. First of all, he had gained much weight. He looked different to me. There was one thing that was very different. His eyes. If you look at, there are a lot of people that you can see. Look at politicians sometimes and look at their eyes. Sometimes they, if they are, you can see, but there are some that have this dark eyes, dark look, and there's something going on inside them. And I always felt that he had those types of eyes. There was a sort of a darkness there behind it. Always, there was a certain restrained anger, a restrained something. I didn't see it so much when he came out of hospital. I looked at his eyes and they seemed to be sort of not so anger-filled, not so dark. They were a little bit more affable. I wonder what happened at that hospital. In any case, now there are many stories in Argentina about how judges and so on dealt with those mothers who went to court asking about the disappeared, and many judges. There was one particular judge, and I forget his name at the moment, that made it totally impossible for just one single mother to find her disappeared son. Not one. He used the Lord for habeas. So where it? Well, I don't know where he is. How am I? This is what I'm here in court for. I want to know. Anyway, round and round and round they went. Not one single mother found their son or their husband or whatever. Those people who were involved in that were brought to the Vatican and promoted there, one in education, the other one called Lucio, is the one who has been selecting all these lovely cardinals from everywhere. A man who publishes pornographic, he would say erotic literature. The Kiss is the title, with a young pubescent boy there. Promoted from nowhere to cardinal there. Yeah, the Vatican, he brought his people with him. Okay, But many of those people who had been so against him, seeing him as a betrayer, many of them folded after he became Pope. That is also true. But in any case, I think he was an extremely arrogant man. I think he never quite forgave Argentina. There is a lot of resentment there towards it. There were many signs that people were talking about of his being a Freemason from the early beginning. People pointed to even gestures. It's quite funny to read, his arm inside the cassock, very Freemason thing, sort of Napoleonic style. But there are many documents, and anyway, okay. What I'm saying is that expect something a little bit strange during the burial or during the funeral. Some strange thing that happens when these people belong to these secret societies. Whether it is a burial, a funeral, a coronation, whatever it might be. There is always something that is just a little bit off, and you can't quite put your finger on what was that? Why did he have to go at the back or at the front? I'm telling you, expect something a little strange during his burial or during, his funeral. I'm going to stop here. I have so much more to tell you, but I've been talking for an hour and a half. I hope I haven't upset you too much. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.